Good morning and good night. Thanks again for downloading the Body Snatchers podcast. And when you listen, stream, or download straight to your device, Castbox is your best option. Remember, if you like what you hear today, don't forget to subscribe and comment. So let's get started. Enjoy the show.
All right, guys. Good morning, good night. Thank you for choosing the Body Snatchers podcast. Tino hanging out with Steven. Steven, what's up, bro?
What's going on? How you feeling?
Terrible because I'm an adult. But aside from that, pretty good. Today we're going to be talking about Ultraman. And before we get into that, can you guys hit the subscribe button? Can you do that for me, please? For me, I would appreciate it. Not for Steven.
Don't do it for me.
But for
Don't
me.
do it for me. I'll overlook it. Do it for Tino.
That's if you're on YouTube, all right? If you're not on YouTube, you should be. But, it's an audio podcast. It is what it is. So if you guys are new, head over to bodysnatcherspodcast.com. We've got tons of links. We're across all social media, Facebook, Snapchat, Twitter, Instagram, all the fun stuff. You guys can add my personal accounts if you want. SuperTino1467 on pretty much everything. Steven's on there too. It's like Super Boogeyman something or the other. It doesn't matter. You'll find him. I tag him in everything.
I forgot I still got that name. Super Sexy Boogeyman Slayer. I'm going to have that tattooed on my back.
Oh my God. Put it on your lower back since that's the kind of individual you are. Right next to that.
It's going to be a straight line.
Right next to that starfish and Celtic tattoo that you have.
It was a gift.
Okay. All right. So anyways, getting to the point, we're here to talk a little bit about Ultraman 2019 that just came out about a week ago on Netflix. And man, it's dope. It's really, really dope. Steven, did you have any kind of background with Ultraman going into this?
No, at first I told you I didn't want to do this, but you made me do it, so good call. I watched the whole season in one night, because I'm not a quitter. When I do something, I do it, and I'm very impulsive, and I ignore all my adult responsibilities. So
Like your
the vibe
children?
I got, oh, definitely. They're the first to go.
Starts with
They're
the
the
children.
first to go.
I got it.
Yeah, and I was very happy. This animation, what was that, Ajin?
Yeah, the animation is it's not like your typical anime. It's that newer style that they've been going towards. So yeah, it was a lot like Ajin.
Like that, and even a little bit like Gats. It's at first the combat seems like the skip. You know what I'm saying? Like it's not really smooth, but the more you watch it, the more your brain compensates for it. And then it gets really good. And then you seem to enjoy it. Like at first I was like, man, I remember writing it down. Then a couple episodes later, I crossed it off. I'm like, all right, this is pretty good. Because I was going to blame the combat for being so choppy. Like I couldn't even follow what was going on. But by the sixth episode, it was smooth. It was fun. It was just Power Rangers. I got a Power Rangers feeling from it.
I didn't have the transition animation issue that you're talking about. I mean, I knew what it was going to be right away. Maybe because I had watched so many of the previews, I expected it. But
Right.
We've discussed that animation before, and it doesn't bug me. To be honest, I really, really like it, and I think it's getting a lot better. I think with Ajin, the issue was sometimes the characters would move so slow. It felt kind of like a crappy version of. You remember that show Code Lyoko?
No.
It was people are gonna get mad at me for saying this, but it was a terrible show that a television series that was out. That was kind of like a 3D-ish anime kind of, and it was just bad. I couldn't stomach it as a kid. I look at it now; it's still terrible. Ajin was better, like a better version of that, but it was still choppy. And Godzilla, the three most recent movies they did on Netflix were pretty good, but again, it wasn't the best, and I think that might in part due why Godzilla moves so slowly. Maybe they just weren't really sure themselves, or maybe if they sped it up, it looked terrible, so they decided to go with that. I'm not sure what it was, but I can say that in Ultraman, you definitely get quite a bit of speed and quality. Like it came out really, really good. And to be honest, I'm not like a diehard Ultraman fan, and that's not to say that I never liked him or anything. It's just as a kid growing up, they used to have all these amazing reruns with Godzilla as well that would come on, at night on TV when all the regular shows went off 9, 10 o'clock, and then the rest of the evening until 5 in the morning. It would be that kind of stuff, and I was a huge fan. Like most of it had really, really bad dub, so as a kid, I didn't even understand half of what was going on. But
Which is why you hate dub as an adult. Which is why you shun it so.
I don't shun it. I just, what? Another show, Steven. Another show.
I like calling you out. Right in the middle of what you were saying.
But anyways, I would get super hype, because you got a dude who looks kind of like, he kind of looks like a mix between a Power Ranger and also because it's like Sentai Warriors. So it was similar to like Superhuman Samurai, which was an amazing show that was out in the early '90s. If you guys aren't familiar with that, definitely check it out. If if you don't want to take my word for it, know that the main villain in that Superhuman Samurai was voiced by Tim Curry. Fun fact: a lot of people don't know that, but it's a phenomenal show. It's a dude that um, basically jumps into the computer world, the cyber world, and he battles viruses. And the viruses look just like kaiju, Godzilla-ish type monsters. And he's a warrior. It's a dude in the suit, but he's kicking their ass up and down the circuit boards and smashing them to into the motherboard, components and stuff. And it's just a little over the top, but I think it was before its time. I would love to see a new iteration of that come out in 2019 or 2020 as we press forward with all this cool stuff. But not to deviate too far from the actual subject. This anime did so much justice for Ultraman. Because Steven, I'm sure you've seen clips of the dude in the suit like beating the shit out of a giant lizard monster and then grabbing him by his feet and swinging him around in
Yeah,
circles and throwing him.
I well, yeah, it's you that posted on Body Snatchers those little clips and said you were hype. I know of them. Admittedly, because I watched this late at night and I was up till like 7 a.m. Up to the fifth episode, I was like, this isn't that show. And I was thinking of VR Troopers. The whole time I was thinking this was a remake of VR Troopers. I was waiting for everyone else. And then the second guy came and I'm like, I really don't remember this guy. And then nothing added up. And then I had to actually look it up that it wasn't VR Troopers. But if it was, this is a perfect way to do it, I think. I just one thing I want to press, like when you watch anything, get headphones or turn it up loud. Get a surround sound. Invest money in a good surround sound or headphones, because the way these suits sounded, whoever was in charge of that did a phenomenal job. It was like fabric and steel when these people were moving, and that's the way you would imagine that it would sound. And it was just like sleek fabric and sleek steel. And when they were fighting, I couldn't get enough of that, because then it got smooth because I could see the animation fluidly.
Okay. Uh, and I don't really have any complaints as far as like the audio effects, et cetera, were concerned. I thought everything that was put into
Oh, they were
there
awesome.
was everything was clean, and he was like, I mean, once he kind of got in his stride towards the end. I mean, it was much easier to stomach like watching him, but I really liked this series because it was and let me choose my words carefully. Like what I want to say is like a semi-realistic type of origin story, because this movie isn't about the original Ultraman that we know. Um, and to be fair, this kind of piggybacks on the original Ultraman that came out in like what was that, like 1965, 1966. Is kind of like what they build on. And to put that in perspective, some people might think, oh, there's only been like one Ultraman. I looked it up because I know that there's been a lot, and offhand I wasn't sure.
There's been like 40 reboots.
35 between
That's
officially between movies and television shows. There's been 35 since 1965, 66, and I just think that that's incredible because it shows you that here we are all these years later, and like it's still relevant. And what they produced for us was a breath of fresh air, and it's very upsetting because I was talking about this literally weeks ago, and I'm like, hey, Ultraman's coming out, who's excited, yada yada yada. And so many people like don't know. And I think it's fair to like be like, okay, if you don't know what happened in like 1965, that's fine, that's way past our time. But I mean, don't be ignorant to it. A lot of people know what Godzilla is, and this is like from that same era of giant monsters and just the Sentai Warriors, etc. And there's little groups and cliques across the internet that are still big into it. But I mean, I think if you enjoy anime, uh, you need to check this out. If you enjoy something like Pacific Rim and don't really get into the traditional Japanese stuff, but you liked it, I think you should check this out. If you enjoyed the animation from Ajin, or any of the other examples that Steven gave earlier, then it's worth checking out. Now, getting into the actual story itself, it starts off really, really good because the very first episode they hit the ground running. They show you Ultraman, the original Ultraman.
Well,
And
let me ask you something before you get started.
yeah,
These storylines, take this one for example.
uh-huh,
We watch a lot of content. a lot of series, a lot of movies. Um, do you feel like this formula is getting a little cliche of how they did it in this series?
Not at all.
You were fine with it.
I loved it. I loved it. The way they design the episodes, you can't get up and walk away. You can't. It's really frustrating because, I had work, and I had a couple days to knock it out. And usually, like, I knock it out in one day if possible, if it's the weekend, which it never is.
Right.
And I sat down and my intention was to watch just 3 or 4 and just do that every night. And I think I went through like 9 episodes the first night because I could not turn it off because they leave you on a major cliffhanger every single episode. Even really the last episode, like you kind of get some sort of resolution, but it's open enough to where you're dying for more and you're not going to get it. And I think that they did a wonderful job because that's what these things should do. You shouldn't watch a series to where you get bored to death, for some
I
of the
agree.
episodes.
I agree.
Um
Let me hit you with something. Let me turn my hat on
oh, it's serious now.
because I can't see the camera.
You're like a young Max from a Goofy movie.
I get that reference. What I would have liked is before
Muck.
you run down to what it actually was, I would have liked 1 or 2 episodes of him getting his act together. The third, we throw in a montage, and then the rest of it, we get a solid Ultraman. Because the cliche part I'm talking about is him. We're watching him grow, and I know you're a big fan of that. You're a big fan of origin stories and step by steps, and I know I'm gonna get what I want in season 2. I know there's gonna be a season 2. I'm sure this is gonna do very well.
Oh
In
yeah.
season 2, we're gonna get, Ultraman fighting some badass out there, and it's gonna be awesome, and he's gonna be slick, and he's gonna be fast, he's gonna be strong. But in this one, we were pretty much just watching him grow up until the last episode to where he was who he needs to be. Um, that's what I would have liked to see. I would have liked to, 3 episodes, there's your build, and then give us something. But they gave us a build through the entire series, and then the last episode they gave us something, which I'm fine with. I would just preference the other way. But
I wouldn't have been happy with that. I would definitely wouldn't have been happy with
are
that.
you sure?
I'm positive because that would have been that BS cliche thing. Like, for instance, take the original Power Rangers. Take the original Power Rangers. You got a bunch of kids from Angel Grove City. Things go down. Zordon brings them to the command center. He gives them their mighty morphers. They don't really. They kind of know how to use them, but they're not. They get attacked by the Putty Patrol, and they get their shit pushed in. And then they're like, okay, let's just do what he said. So all right. Day at the Dumpster, I think, was the original title for that
Oh
episode.
yeah, oh yeah.
Was that
Billy was a blue belt, and he's fighting monsters.
93, 94? It doesn't matter, whatever. Either way, though, they kind of know martial arts a little bit, some of them, kind of. And they hold their morphers up and they shout out, Tyrannosaurus and whatever have you, and
Right,
they transform. And as soon as they transform, and granted, like as an adult, you look back like, okay, obviously they just took clips from the show in Japan, but still, the fact that they were with it, they were in sync. Like, oh, we can do this now. You know what I mean? That's aggravating to me. And there's a million series just like that. And I think if your
mhm,
audience is very young kids, you can lose their attention span quickly. So you can't do too much. But I think for a more mature audience, which is what this was geared towards,
yeah.
um, it needs to be a bit more realistic. And that's what I was so excited about, is because it's so rare that you get something that's stretched out this far that's actually something you can stomach. You know what I'm saying?
Right, right. And that's where we differ. That's why I wanted to ask you about it because you're slow, you're more focused, you like a story. Me, I'm impulsive. I like shiny things. I like banging my keyblade around while we're recording.
That's
I just feel like for me, what I can get out of it, what they did through the whole series is what they could have done in 3 episodes. But that's just my opinion. That's just how I am. But you were gonna go down the story because we're going off.
Well, yeah, so going, into the story, they give you the original Ultraman, which I guess I expected, but I wasn't really sure how they were going to go with it. And, pretty much, Ultraman, Shin Hayata, he's the original, and he's got these phenomenal powers. And the way the origin story goes, or at least with respect to the original series and what you have now, is there was an alien that came down. It merged with him. It gave him the powers of Ultraman. He fought for whatever, like a decade or so, and it had enhanced him, giving him these powers. And then the alien goes off to do whatever it does, not to be seen again. And from there, he's left with these powers, but he loses his memory. He doesn't remember that he was Ultraman. He remembers nothing. He just knows that he was part of this science team, that's stationed on Earth. So he knows he worked with Ultraman. He knows about Ultraman, but not that he is Ultraman. Fast forward, approximately 10 years or so, he has a son, and his son has these gifted abilities, and it's strange for him, for Shin, looking down on his son who has like this super strength and he's super durable. He falls off this like 3-story
That
ledge.
hurt my stomach. I didn't like that. That was too real.
But it was good though,
It
because
was good.
it demonstrates, what he's capable of. He hits the ground, everybody's like, "Oh my God, what's going on?" And Shin, picks him up and he's like, I got to get out of here. But it's not because he's, scared of, what happened with his son. It's just that he doesn't want people to want to dissect his son. He himself doesn't know what's wrong. And, due to events, etc., he discovers that, he was Ultraman at one point in time. And now it's all starting to click as to, what his son can do and why. His son has obviously inherited these powers, but he never tells his son this. Fast forward a little bit further, his son's, I think approximately another 10 years or so. So his son is around 16, 17, teenage age. And he's got, these crazy powers. He doesn't get along with his father. His son is infatuated with, Ultraman, who at this point is like some iconic like hero. There's statues in the city. People know that he existed at one point in time, but have never seen him. So it's almost like they debate whether or not he ever existed, whether or not the kaiju ever came to Japan and other areas of Earth, etc. Which I thought was kind of wild, but like that's really how it would go, in society. If you had a dude doing all this stuff, and they're like, "Oh yeah, he existed," and people are like, "Where? But where though?" So
Right, exactly.
I thought that was kind of cool. But anyways, this dude comes down out of nowhere with a full can of whoop ass that he just cracked open. And for whatever reason, you guys have to watch the series to find that stuff out, because I don't want to spoil everything.
But
And
you've explained pretty much the whole first episode. That's how
and
that's how
I'm
good this gets.
yeah, and I'm choosing my words carefully, because I want to keep everything confined to that first episode with maybe a
Right.
couple little tidbits, because there's 12, 13 episodes, so I'm not giving you too much. I know it might seem like it. So this badass comes down, and he's opens a can of whoop ass. He wants to take out what was his name? Shinjiro. So that's the son's name. So
Right.
he comes down to stomp him out. And the son, he's obviously has these gifted abilities, but I mean he doesn't know really how to use them. I mean, he can, fight somewhat, but he's not a warrior. And he's always been way stronger than everybody. So, he sees this dude that can take his punch, and he goes to give him everything he's got at the time, and it's not enough. And the son is definitely about to get killed. And then who comes out of nowhere? The original Ultraman, a 60-year-old original Ultraman who is a badass. Okay, I don't care what anybody says. He takes an L. He's got to take an L. And it's interesting how they go about it. And I did want to talk about it on the podcast, but as I'm getting into it, I feel like if I say too much, it's going to ruin it for you. So I'd rather not.
That's all they need. That for that first episode is gonna hook you really quick. I
You
mean,
know,
if you like anything that we talk about, you're gonna love this.
Yeah, but in doing so, the son sees that his dad is Ultraman, and he's like, "What the hell, Dad? Like, what? Like, that's my hero, but I hate you, like, as a person." Like, it's just it gives you a lot of conflicted emotions, and it should, because that's what makes for good writing. And you go on from there, and you find out more about the attacker, and it obviously, I'm not ruining anything for you guys as far as like, this guy right here, like, yeah, that's the new Ultraman. Like, that's the whole point of this. I'm sure you've seen it in the previews, whatever have you. So, check it out. But man, it keeps you on the edge of your seat, dude. Like, honestly, when we were talking about earlier and you were saying like, or I should say, I was saying like every episode, you can't turn it off. It's really like that. Every single episode. Like, I remember looking at the clock. It's like midnight. I have work the next morning, and that to be continued pops up, and you're just like, wait, now? Like,
Yeah,
right.
me worse than you. I knew nothing about it, and I just one clean slate took it out. Took me about like 7 hours.
Uh, but worth it though, right?
Yeah, yeah, I enjoyed it. I mean, if there's a season two to if there isn't a season two to this, I'll be amazed. Like this has to do really well. It has to.
Okay. Now, without getting into detail, what did you think about the other Ultramen? Because you're probably not familiar with any of that at all. And again, I'm not an expert, but
No,
I'm
I
not
don't
ignorant to
understand
it.
it. What was his name? Marubushi? He
Morobushi was such a badass.
he with his sword, the combat that they did in this, because it's kind of like what were the weapons that the other Ultramen had? They had like
They had
little
their
lightsabers on their forearms, right?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's the best way to describe it. And this guy has a sword. So whenever they're doing hand-to-hand combat, this guy gets a sword and he's doing rolls and he's tossing the sword and picking it up over here and slicing them, and it's just really quick, really powerful. He definitely seems stronger than there's 3 of them.
Yeah.
And I was gonna text you, but I was more ahead than you were. I don't know why there's 3 of them. They're all calling themselves Ultramen. Um, like whenever you see this, you always think it's just one Ultraman. There's one Superman. That's who it is. But it seems like that's
Well,
not
no,
the case.
there has been more, and every story is a little bit different. But the way that they put this together, I thought was really tasteful. The way that they drop things on you is done very well as far as the storytelling is concerned. Nothing really jumps out and ever feels unnecessary. Like you get it, and they put them into situations where you think you see one Ultraman who's he's got it. Like what I mean. That's all we need, and then
Yeah.
you see two and you still see things not going quite so well, because the one thing I always liked about the Ultraman show is it was never super one-sided. I can't stand something where the hero is just so OP where he's just always going to come through. Like in Ultraman, especially in this new iteration, you just feel them struggle, and like
Right.
when they win something, it's kind of like One Piece, because like Luffy never wins. I mean, of course, like in his early fights when it's like a scrub, sure, of course, but when he's fighting like somebody who's like top tier, like you got to go through some things. Before he can come out on top, and sometimes it's due to a technicality or whatever. But I mean, you feel some type of way when he finally wins, and I think that's great writing, and that's what you get in Ultraman is you get you get that struggle, you feel that struggle all the way through, and like
Right. They
it's
did
that
a
uncertainty,
they did a really good job on making these enemies, look like they can kill Ultraman. They
because they
made them,
can.
yeah, they made them quick. They made them powerful. They made them like just the presence was it was a lot bigger than Ultraman because one, he's new, and two, these guys are certified killers. I think that's really important because, like you said, you'll get bored if he just keeps coming in and goes through the motions.
Oh yeah, and one thing that I liked is in a lot of the original Ultraman TV shows and movies, from the things that I've seen, there's been a lot of times where like they just come out with monsters and or aliens, whatever you want to call them, kaiju, and they were coming out with them so fast that like sometimes, and I had to look it up to be certain because I'm like maybe I missed something. Some of them don't even have names, like they have no name, no personality, and like now it works like for something like that because people are in here for the monster fights, the cool effects and all that stuff. So yeah, an alien shows up, maybe he's not gonna have a personality, but in Ultraman, like they give these guys, I mean they're sentient, they talk, they're intelligent, like it's just interesting. And one of the aliens, really a couple of them, they go out of their way to mock Ultraman, which I thought was great. It made it that
Yeah,
much better. If he's just fighting some dude in the middle of a city, it's like okay, you get it, like he could die, but these dudes are. It reminded me a lot of Guyver, because in Guyver you have they have what's called zoonoids, and they're humans that transform into these giant like monsters basically, but like they still speak and talk like humans, whether it be with their mouth or telepathically, and they talk a lot of shit. They're like, is this your girlfriend? What if I cut her fucking pretty head off? And you're like, oh my god, bro, like don't say that to him, like, oh, what if I kill your dad with cancer? And you're like, dude, like what? He's already got cancer. Don't do that, like, but like it brings you in really fast. And
right.
that's kind of what you get in Ultraman. He's like, you know what? What if I was to walk over here and kill her right now? Because the way that you're fighting, I think that you're new. I think that you got Bambi legs. I don't think you're ready for this, man. And I tell you what, I'm not gonna do is lose to no newbie. And it's just the shit talking and the banter, it just drags you in even further. And you're like, oh man, like that's mean. Like you're
Yeah,
hurting her with
they
words
monologue pretty good because these aliens have been living with them and around them just in camouflage, correct?
in secret.
Yeah, so
Well, sort of, yeah. It's been there's been cover ups and things of that nature. But again, man, like it's just a solid ass show. I mean, the only thing that I think if I had to nitpick a little bit on what I thought lacked up until the end, last like 3 or 4 episodes, it made sense. There's love scene ish situations.
Ooh.
Uh, but the more I dwelled on it, like I didn't really like it like at first glance. Like I thought it was kind of sloppy. But as you get towards the end, it's actually done pretty good. They don't put too much in your face. It's just, they just keep bringing up these little things of like a possible potential love connection, and it feels like the story is gonna lay heavily on it.
And I was gonna say that they don't put it in your face. They don't make it a big deal. Like they'll have their little scene, but you got a battle going on at the same time. So it's not like you got a whole episode of them just sitting at the park.
Yeah, it's certainly tolerable.
Yeah.
And then as you get towards the end, it makes more sense. And to be honest, it's very relatable because a lot of this is like, you got an awkward teenager and you got a more confident teenager who doesn't pick up signals, of what's going on, between the two, so to speak. And it's just relatable to being younger and having a crush on a girl who doesn't like you, or she might like you, you're not sure, you're overthinking it, and like you're doing things and it's just not clicking. And he's very vocal about it, at least like the way it's narrated, so you get to hear all of his thoughts regarding it. But as Steven just said, as soon as they start getting into it and you're kind of like, you feel yourself getting to a point where you're like, all right, like they recognize it, so it's not too much, it's very small doses, and then it kind of comes together at the end, and not in the cliche way that you'll think either. I like that the way that it ended. It ended tastefully. I would have been very upset if like they tried to turn this into a combination of Your Name,
Yeah.
because I love Your Name, but like I want that lovey-dovey stuff to be here, and I want my violence to be here. And I think that they, I think that they got a good little formula going where you get just enough to kind of bring you out of it, and then bring you back into it, so you get a lot of diversity in the story as you're trying to digest it, overall. But
Right.
and again, like I was just, it's not really a complaint per se, it's just something that I recognize. But if you finish the series, it makes more sense, like full circle. So if it pops up for you guys, just wanted to mention that.
Yeah. And one more thing, if you're gonna put the dubs on, change the names. All the names. Just whitewash them. Get a Steve, a Rick in there, David.
Don't listen to Steven. Don't listen to
A lot
Steven.
of these names we can't say.
The dub is very good. I can say them. The dub is very good. You even said it. You said like two of the names earlier.
I can't do it again.
So you got one of their names correct on here. A full Japanese name with like 2 to 3 syllables in it. No problem. But you couldn't remember how to say Whitebeard?
Yes.
So that's not a problem with the listeners. That sounds more like a you problem.
Yes.
I don't know if you drank too much Mountain Dew when you were growing up in your trailer park. I'm not sure what you did.
I grew up in a house.
Right.
My mom was nice.
Right. Now before we go, because we're nearly at time here, one thing that I wanted to bring up, Bemular is the main antagonist. And one cool thing about Bemular, because I don't want to give out any major details about him, he's technically speaking, he's not even the only antagonist. So that'll be a little Easter egg I leave for you.
A lot of
guys.
bad people in this show.
A lot of bads, a lot
Yeah.
of baddies all over the place. But Bemular, one thing I didn't know, because the name sounded familiar. And again, I'm not an expert on the original series, but I had looked it up. Bemlar was gonna be the original name for Ultraman. And so you follow so far?
Instead of Ultraman. Are you
Right.
talking about the actual character?
The actual character. It was going to be Bemlar in 1965, give or take.
Jeez.
And for whatever reason, they ended up changing it and made Bemlar the main antagonist for the original series. And Bemlar basically was like a B-list Godzilla. And then another interesting fact was he had a very distinct like alien roar. And what I didn't know, which I thought was really cool, because I remember seeing him, honestly didn't remember that his name was Bemlar, but again, sounded familiar somewhere in my head. I had to look it up. His original distinctive roar, you got to look it up when you get a chance. It's actually the original Godzilla's roar, but the audio is reversed on it. How dope is that? I mean, like, it's, you can laugh at it, call it cheap, and knock off whatever you want to say, but I thought it was pretty cool. I mean, how do you save money on a budget, make it sound like more alien-ish?
Right?
That's how you do it.
It's a good callback.
So I was just like, oh snap, like the fanboy.
It could be at that time too, where everyone's using the same tracks. like they do with that scream whenever a guy gets like his hand cut off or something, that over the top scream.
It's like Disney doing their animations. You seen that where they use like the same stuff over and over again? There's YouTube videos of it out where like the aristocrats and like and I'm just making this up off the top of my head, but like aristocrats and like Aladdin, 101 Dalmatians, like it's just random stuff, but like they have the exact same scenes where they go down to like the bare bone drawings and then like resketch everything up. It's literally, it's not just similar, it's the exact same thing.
Is
And
it
they were like,
is
they
it
were
the same
saying,
artist? Do you know?
some of them, yes.
Yeah.
But they were saying, oh, you know, we were just recycling the same formula because it works so good. And I'm like, yeah, all right.
That's what they do. That's what I'm telling you. That I think that's what everyone does. There's a formula that you put out, and then you just color in the blanks of how you want them.
But dude, if you sit down and look at it, because they do like scan over scan and side by sides with them playing, like it's not just similar, it's literally the exact same drawings. Disney fed you the same stuff with different songs and slightly different colors. And now they own Marvel and Star Wars and a bunch of other good
You should
stuff.
put that in Body Snatchers Facebook after this, so I can see it.
I have before. I'll see if I can look it up after the show. So, all right, guys, we're at time. That's really all I wanted to say. Steven, do you have a last note that you want to bring up before we leave?
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff I don't want to do, but I'm really glad I watched this. It was a hidden gem for me, and I watched it all in one run because that's what I do.
And this is coming from Steven, who's like a Neanderthal. So if he loved it this much, and I loved it this much, I mean, you have two different sides of the spectrum. You got somebody who, you know, is more introspective and loves like the the dialogue and the building, and you've got somebody who just loves the action, and we were able to meet in the middle. And for one, this might be the first time we've agreed this much down the middle on a specific show.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think that should say something for people who've been listening. I mean, that should speak volumes. You need to check it out. It's worth your time. And I'd honestly be incredibly interested to hear your guys' feedback and how you felt about it. If you want to add extra facts about Ultraman, like, please, by all means, because like I've watched a lot of this stuff. If anything, this has made me want to go back and kind of be able to watch everything. Not everything, there's a lot, but at least like the first series again in like a chronological order as best as I possibly can. I think that would be fun, just to kind of catch up on it for nostalgia's sake, because like, it's just that good. And I can't wait for the second season, like Steven said. So please hit the subscribe button, head over to bodysnatcherspodcast.com, follow us on all forms of social media, check out, what are we on, Podbean? The Bean of Pods?
Oh, Podbean. We're everywhere, dude. We're everywhere.
Podbean, Castbox, iTunes, write some reviews, support us, talk to us. We like to talk. Talk.
I like to talk.
Yeah, but nobody's listening. So
only when I'm out of here.
All right, guys.
Got us.
Have a good night. Say bye, Steve.
Later, guys.